Welcome to Women Kicking Glass, the only radio show on OC Talk Radio dedicated to empowering women to be the best leaders they can be in any endeavor they choose. Pattie Grimm is our host and interviews top women in a variety of fields to help women grow, learn, and lean in together. Pattie has over 25 years of experience in primarily male-dominated fields in senior-level management positions. Pattie is the owner of Advantage Training Limited, an organizational leadership team training company. She recently released her new book for women called Quiet Women Never Changed History. Be strong, stand out, and stand up. With the subtitle, Let's Go Kick Some Glass.
And that's exactly what we're going to do this morning. Let's start the glass kicking here with Pattie Grimm.
Great, and thanks, Paul. We have an amazing woman and glass kicker here with us today, and I always say you have to be careful how you say that, especially when you're a little tired at the end of the day. It may come out a little improperly. So I love this show, and I'm so glad to be your host. Each week we talk about a number of things. We talk about issues that are important to women, such as climbing the corporate ladder and maybe getting that promotion or raise you deserve. So how do you negotiate better? Talking about social issues that women are concerned about, whether it be cyberbullying or anything that's going on. We're going to have somebody, a heart surgeon, talk about heart disease in women. We're going to have a whole bunch of variety of people on our audience. And also something that Laura's going to talk about today is about some issues that are personal to women. That how do you manage and balance your life and stress, and how do you deal with all the pressures that are out there? So Laura's got a really amazing background, and she's author of a wonderful book called Shine Your Light, Illuminate Your Love, which I read recently at the beach with my dog on one sunny day, although it's pouring rain today. So tell you a little bit about Laura. So Laura's really broken through a lot of glass ceilings. She was one of the first general managers and partner of a leading restaurant company that actually provided the food to companies like Nordstrom's. It was sort of the Nordstrom's of casual dining, I guess. I kind of messed that up a little bit. But she had a fine life. She was successful. She was breaking through the glass ceiling. And then two events happened that really changed her life. They changed her life forever. One was recovering from alcoholism. So we're going to talk today about a very different topic about women and alcohol and how that affects our lives in all kinds of areas. And then she also got her master's degree in spiritual psychology, which I think really illuminated her life, to use her word. And she found that, we needed to think about an inside-out approach to how we manage our lives. We can't think about just how we look on the outside. We need to think about how we look on the inside. And so based on all those things, she decided she was going to develop her own self-leadership skills and how to deal with these rocky circumstances. And she learned that, she could live her life with grace and ease and power and be free from stress. And I think it's really informational and super helpful. So in 2012, Laura founded her own company called Laura Dewey Consulting. And she believes that people need to access life-changing information if they want it. And she provides that amazing information. She's passionate, a personal leadership coach. She's a speaker. And as I said, she's author of the book, Shine Your Light, Illuminate Your Love, chronicles of her rocky road from addiction to insecurity to strength, self-acceptance, and eventually finding her way. And so I'm really thrilled to have Laura here today and talk about this very interesting topic.
Thank you, Pattie. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And so you went from being a successful woman in business for decades, and then you decided to have your own vibrant coaching practice. Can you share a little something specifically about that today? But what's that all about? How do you go from running a restaurant that's the Nordstrom's equivalent of restaurants to a coaching business?
Well, I used to think that it was a big jump. It was very different, but I was always known as a leader and mentor all throughout my years with that company. And women looked up to me. I was the first female partner, the first female this and that. And but I think I have the soul of a teacher. My undergrad is in education.
Yep.
And, once I got my master's in spiritual psychology, I realized that I had some skill in this area, that I have an ability to work with people on a deep level. And so putting the leadership, mentorship, teaching and training all together, it's a natural fit, and it's not all that different than what I used to do.
Yeah, so I started out in education as well, and then I got Proposition 13 came along, which eliminated basically the tax base and eliminated all new teachers. And so I ended up going into banking because my godfather was a VP of a big bank. Got into it, and I loved it. But I loved it from the teaching aspect, and eventually got into training and learning. And people ask me, how did you do what you do? And I really say, it was experience, breaking through those ceilings, but experience, but also wanting to teach and make a difference and help people be the best that they could be.
Amen.
Yeah. So tell me about your spiritual psychology. What is that?
Oh, you're asking me that question. I had no idea how to answer this for years. And then recently I realized, it might as well be called a master's in self-leadership.
I like that.
Because I learned the most amazing skills on how to manage myself. We take ourselves wherever we go, right?
Yeah. You can't leave yourself behind.
And we're leading ourselves in our lives. The question is, how and where are we leading ourselves? Right?
Right.
And so now I know how to lead myself effectively in a way that serves me instead of, we'll talk about soon, a way that did not serve me.
Yeah. Yeah, so I really like that, a way that served you. And now, so how does that extend now into your coaching business?
Well, the core of my business is about self-leadership. And for me, there are 3 parts to that. The first is self-awareness. When you go to program your GPS, it first needs to know your current location.
Well, and it needs to sync signals.
Yes. So in order to grow, you have to know where you are now. So I work with my clients to really understand themselves and accept themselves. What are their strengths? What are their opportunities? What are their core values? And what on earth do they want? It's hard, I think, for women in particular to know what you want. You'd be surprised how hard it is to pull it out of someone. There's so many shoulds out there. I should want this. I should do this. I should. What do you want? In the deepest part of your soul, what is your soul yearning for? So self-awareness is first.
Awesome.
Second, learn new skills. I'm all about skills and tools. When you work with me, you leave with things, concrete skills. It's not all airy-fairy.
It's not airy-fairy, touchy-feely, kumbaya?
Well, a little of that. I want you to come through me and out, right?
Yeah.
I don't want you to be a client for life, unless, of course, you want to be. But I call the stuff I teach the stuff no one taught us in school. Emotional intelligence. What are emotions? Where do they come from? What on earth do you do with them? How do you react in a way that's more measured and less emotional? How do you have deep conversations? How do you deal with difficult people? These are all things nobody teaches us, and I think it's a tragedy. And then the third step is I believe in experimentation. My work is highly experiential. I don't want you to come into a session and commit for the rest of your life to do A, B, or C, because guess what? You're probably going to fail. I want you to take a new skill and try it once. Yes.
Yeah.
And if you like it, do it again. If you don't, throw it out. Only you can decide what's right for you in your life.
Yeah.
And so through experimentation, we build new habits. And so for me, self-leadership is those 3 things.
Yeah, we have so many things in common because I really talk about the things women need to do. One is, be strong. So know what your strengths are. Emotional intelligence is something that is really, really important. So it's based on the book by Daniel Goldman, that basically he did research with people from age like 2 years old up into their 80s about what made somebody different and better or more effective. Was it EQ or IQ, right? What he found from all of his research that those with really high IQ, those people that we think are scary smart, that are just brilliant people, they're successful, but they're not as successful as somebody who has EQ, emotional intelligence, and IQ.
Yes.
So know what your strengths are, right? Have a personal vision that you stand on, that you use to make decisions. That is your why. What do you stand for? What do you stand up for? And using those things to make decisions.
And the best why is the why that makes you cry because it's so dear to your heart.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, but I don't think a lot of people think about that. Why? When you ask somebody, well, why do you do what you do? Oh, well, the money's good, or I like the job, or I like the people. That's always my favorite one. I like to work with people. But why? What is your why that's deep in your heart and soul that gets you energized every day, that you find yourself doing these kinds of things when nobody's watching?
Yes.
Because it's in your soul. I mean, that's amazing.
And that's true fulfillment.
Yeah.
When you're working from that place.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this whole subject that I think a lot of people kind of avoid, this whole idea about women and alcoholism.
Women and alcohol, yes.
And you've been there, done that.
I've been there, done that. And, it's estimated, Patty, that 5.3 million women in the United States are drinking in a way that compromises their health, their safety, and or their general well-being. And
Wow.
I know.
5.3
million. And I used to be one of those women. I drank for decades, and many of those years problematically. And I think this is a topic that is not talked about a lot. And so my hope today is that we can shed some light on it. I can share, and I want to be clear, I'm sharing my personal experience. I'm not telling anyone what to do. This is all for your consideration.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that at least one listener in your audience may be suffering in silence. And so if we help her, then our time together is time well spent.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I thank you for bringing this topic forward. Laura approached me at one of our NABO meetings, National Association of Women Business Owners, that we're both members of and both love. And she approached me about being on the show. And I was like, I'd love to have you on the show. And then she told me the topic. I was like, we have to talk about this. It's like pulling up the rug, right? We keep trying to put things under the rug, and so we keep dusting things under a rug.
Yes.
And eventually the rug is so big we fall over it.
Oh, yes.
So that's very, very interesting. So what distinguishes a social drinker from a problem drinker?
Social drinking is fun. You can take or leave it. And I think whether you're drinking daily or just periodically, problem drinking takes on the qualities of having an affair.
Say more.
You think about it a lot. You look forward to it. You make plans for it. Oh, the planning was exhausting. You have some shame about it. Like a lot, in the end, the shame was just unbelievable, and oftentimes you end up doing things you're not proud of. So that, to me, is problem drinking. And if anybody wants to, there's something called the 20 questions of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Right.
If you want to answer those questions for yourself, Google that, and oh God, I remember doing that, and I just answered so many yes. And again, just put it back under the rug. It's like, oh,
isn't that interesting?
Then 12 out of 20. Oh, and I just kept drinking.
Yeah. So again, you could go to the internet and you can look on Google or
Sure.
Bing or anything. You can search for the 20 questions about alcoholism.
Sure.
Okay.
It'll pop up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you have a moment when you really knew you had a problem? What was your wake-up calls?
Well, when I started drinking, I was only 14. I was very young. And
14?
Yeah. I grew up in Massachusetts, and I thought there was nothing to do except drink out in the woods. But really, why? I drank because I was so uncomfortable in my skin when I was out in the world among the humans. I didn't feel like I belonged there. So alcohol in the beginning was wonderful. When I drank, I felt prettier. I felt smarter. I could talk to people without feeling stupid. It was great. And then over the years, not so great. I, unlike many alcoholics, knew I had a problem forever. A lot of people are in denial about that. I knew I had a problem, and I was unwilling and too afraid to do anything about it. Sure, I had trouble stopping. I had no off switch. Sure, I put myself in dangerous situations. Sure, I had huge gaps in my memory sometimes. I knew I had a problem all along, really almost all along, and I just didn't do anything about it.
Does it become like a security blanket? Like that you're going to go out to an event. Maybe you're a little bit introverted,
yeah,
or you're not comfortable at this event, and you think, well, I'll just have a glass of Chardonnay.
Totally, yes,
or Pinot Noir.
We were talking earlier, Patty, that and I think women do this. I drank wine. I drank Chardonnay. I was a refined drinker, right? I didn't drink that dirty vodka or whiskey or gin. I drank Chardonnay in a beautiful
crystal glass.
Exactly. And now I got carried away. I forgot the question.
Does it become like a comfort?
Totally.
Like getting dressed, right? You get dressed, you put on your best clothes, you put on your best makeup, you get ready, and you say, I'm not comfortable in this environment, so I'm going to have a glass of Pinot Noir.
Have you heard the phrase social lubricant?
Social lubricant.
Yes, alcohol is social lubricant, and that's what it was for me. It allowed me to feel more comfortable in my skin, but it was a false sense of security, right? And maybe some women can relate to this. If you're a real serious drinker, you drink before, so you can get a little buzz on, right? Then you drink there. But you have to watch how much you drink because people might be watching you. So maybe you have 2 in front of people, and then you go home and do the real drinking.
Oh, by yourself?
Oh, yeah.
At home?
Sure.
In front of the TV?
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's both a habit. It became a habit and like a comfort blanket. Like you said, it's easy to drink your stress away, your anxiety away. It's just, and it's there and it's easy.
So why didn't you get help sooner? You said you're 14. You did it as a comfort to fit in with the crowd because you could be prettier or more sociable and more accepted because you were part of the crowd that was drinking. I'm concerned about the number of kids that are drinking nowadays and the young women in college that are binge drinking that are putting themselves in danger. They're putting themselves in dangerous situations. They're, what could be an accident, could be any number of horrible things could happen to a young woman in college that's been drinking. So it's sort of that, when did you finally have the wake-up call? What finally did it for you?
Well, I didn't get help sooner. I'll share the wake-up call in a second. But I didn't get help sooner because I was terrified. I had no idea how to live my life without alcohol. And there was no way that I was going to tell anybody this secret. I had so much shame about it. I built an incredibly successful career, somehow.
Yeah, it's all in your book about your career and that you were a top person. You were at these conferences and people were looking for you.
Yeah. And I went home and drank every night. And I felt like garbage most days of my adult life. Isn't that awful?
Yeah.
And so I didn't get help because I was terrified. And there was so much shame associated with it. And if anyone's listening that can relate with this, they know what I'm talking about. It's such a secret, and there's so much self-loathing that you don't want to tell anybody.
Yeah.
How I got sober is in the end days of my drinking, the last 2 or 3 years of my drinking, my life truly became unmanageable, and alcohol took on it became an entity. Like I had to drink, and I hated every drink I took. That's a special kind of hell. I know you're looking at me incredulously. It's like,
no, I'm not. I'm fascinated by your story. I was fascinated by the book, but now that you're saying it,
can you imagine hating it and then doing it anyway? That is a special kind of hell. And thankfully, my company staged an intervention. And it was the day...
Wow.
I know. I'd been there a long time. And it was the day I both dreaded and longed for, because now I had been officially found out, and I had to do something about it. Or who knows what would have happened to me.
Yeah. Wow.
So yay.
Yeah, yay! Thank you for them for doing that for you. So one of the things we talked about as we were sort of getting ready for the show was this. I've heard about it. I haven't seen it, or maybe I'm just blind to it. Is there seems to be a number of young mothers or young women that are getting into this alcohol cycle where they're send the kids off to school. Maybe they have a little bit of anxiety. They're trying to be the perfect mom, the perfect this, the perfect that, so they drink.
Yes.
And then the anxiety leads to depression. The depression leads to more anxiety, which leads to more drinking. So what is your advice or experience on that?
I don't have children. I lived alone most of my life.
But you now have an incredible husband.
Amazing. And that happened after I got sober. There's no accident there. So I drank alone. And so I think women may find themselves alone, or they have a small child, so they figure they can drink a little. The child's home, or the child goes to school. They have time. And like I said, wine. They may be drinking wine or something sweet and frou-frou. And it starts out fun. It really does. It's relaxing and fun. But then for some people, not everyone, something changes and it becomes problematic. And then starts the cycle of feeling guilty for doing it, having some self-loathing, a lot of shame. If your child's home I mean, you're drinking in front of them, but I think women put a lot of pressure on themselves to be perfect.
Yep.
We judge ourselves more. We were talking, it's raining today, so we were talking about bad hair, and I said, bad hair, that's one reason I drank. I had these beliefs about myself, and now it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares what my hair looks like? And those standards, those invisibly high standards that we set for ourselves cause a lot of stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful thing to drink over.
Well, and I know I've heard there are groups of women that get together for lunch, and they'll have a couple glasses of wine, and 2-3 o'clock they go pick up the kids, and the husband doesn't get home, whatever happens to be going on in their lives, and then it sort of just becomes this social that eventually can almost get out of control.
Yes, it's lovely until it takes that turn, and unless you've taken that turn, you don't know what I'm talking about. But just know that, I believe alcoholism is kind of like a wick. And for some people, it burns very, very slowly. Some people quickly. And eventually, boom, on the end, And so some people never reach the boom. Other people do.
It's an interesting analogy. So where does some of this, based on your experience, and I can talk about mine as well, but also and your psychology degree, where does this perfectionism come from in women? It doesn't seem to affect men as much as women. I have sort of my theory, but where do you think this perfectionism comes from in girls growing up, and then eventually we become women?
Well, I think it's the messages we receive from the media. I think it's a desire to appeal to men. I don't know. It could come from our parents, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
It's different for everyone. We pick up things in our childhood, and then we believe them, and they affect our lives.
Yeah, because I know for me, I'll talk about my personal experience. I grew up in a very loving, caring family with a father, mother who cared for me, that taught me I could do anything I ever wanted to do as long as I put my mind to it. Very supportive family. And yet, there was this little bit about always needing to be perfect, right? I was a tomboy. My brother was perfect. My brother was quiet and shy, would sit in one room for hours with one toy, and I was truly a Tasmanian devil. I was climbing trees. I was always tearing my dresses. My mother would never dress me in white because I was like Pigpen. I just attracted dirt. And so I always had this idea that I was never quite good enough. I wasn't perfect. Right? I didn't have the perfect hair. I didn't have this. And now with the pressure of social media and the media of everybody wanting to look like, pick a famous star. They want to look like Kim Kardashian, so they're getting butt implants. They want to look like, somebody who's completely opposite, Jennifer Aniston, that's maybe very thin, and young girls are getting thigh surgery to make a gap in the middle of their legs so they have a thigh gap.
Yeah.
And that's perfectionism that, as girls, it affects us, but as we become women, that perfectionism can lead to alcoholism. It can lead to procrastination, so something's never good enough.
Absolutely.
We're always trying to fine-tune things and figure out, well, how could I be better? Instead of saying, which I love in your book, how could I just be the best me?
Yeah, there's only one you.
There's only one you.
Yeah.
And there's nobody like you?
There's nobody like you. And that's one thing, one gift of sobriety is I am comfortable in my skin, perceived faults and all. Here I am, and I'm human. And I don't have those unrealistic expectations of myself anymore. And I live just a peaceful, graceful life.
That's what I love, this peaceful, graceful life. So we're going to continue on. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to talk about some of your lessons from sobriety and some of the things, what are some of the biggest misunderstandings about being sober, alcoholism. I really want to continue this conversation because this is fantastic.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Imagine what it would feel like to lose everything. Your job, your home, your family, your dignity. This has happened to thousands of the men, women, veterans, and young adults we serve at Working Wardrobes. What do we do to help? We provide career development services, life skills workshops, job skills training. We provide the perfect interview outfit, and we get clients placed in jobs. Call Working Wardrobes, 714-210-2460. Donate, volunteer, invest, hire.
When it comes to pioneers in their respective industries, we all know the Apples, Starbucks, and Trader Joe's of the world. In the realm of recruiting, Decision Toolbox is the industry's best-kept secret. with 90% of their business from referrals and repeat customers. For over 20 years, Decision Toolbox's U.S.-based team of recruiters, sourcers, professional writers, quality personnel, and tech support has perfected a Six Sigma approach to talent management. No matter the size of the project, Decision Toolbox delivers incredible results. A cost per hire less than half of what contingency firms charge, with the winning candidate presented in an average of 14 days, all with a 12-month candidate warranty. With results like that, Decision Toolbox won't be a secret for long. Visit us at www.dtoolbox.com for more information.
All right, we're talking a lot off cam here, but I wish we could record some of this stuff here. Back to Pattie again. Very, very interesting. Thank you for sharing all this stuff. I'm sure it's not easy to discuss this, or maybe it helps to discuss it. Does it help to discuss all these things?
You know, it's not difficult at all. When I first got sober, I was so full of shame. I didn't want anybody to know anything. I held my anonymity very closely, and now my shame is lifted. I know that I can help people. This is not difficult at all. This is a joy.
Yeah. In fact, it was interesting. I was at a members-only mixer with Laura at a friend's house, and somebody said something about a glass of wine, and she just said, "No, thank you. I'm an alcoholic. I'll stick with water." I mean,
yeah, and I throw that out there. I don't have to. I can say, no thanks. It can end there.
Yeah.
But I throw it out there because if someone has a problem, guess what? They'll be talking to me in the corner.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like to be available and wave my flag a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what are some of your biggest lessons from sobriety? Do we have time?
Well, most importantly, first and foremost, that I'm okay. That I'm okay.
You're okay.
I'm not broken. I don't have to hide. I do belong out with the people, because I didn't think I did.
You have something to give?
Yes. So I'm okay. I'm comfortable in my skin for the first time in my life. I've been sober 13 years, so and some change. So that's super cool. I have an inner confidence that I never thought was possible, a high level of self-acceptance, and a lot less self-judgment. So that's been such a gift. Another really important thing that I had to learn, I couldn't do it myself. I tried to moderate my drinking forever. I tried to stop forever.
Right.
For whatever reason, I couldn't do it. And I was one of those women, still suffer from this to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. I got to do it myself. If you want it done right, do it yourself.
Got yourself.
And if I was good enough, I could have quit. And for me, no, I couldn't. And some people can. I have met people who stopped drinking. I think it's wonderful.
Right.
But I was not that. I was not that woman. I also learned there's a whole world out there beyond alcohol that I had no idea was there. Wonderful people, rich relationships, like presence. I was never present if I was under the influence. And, oh, my goodness. And probably most precious, I have an amazing relationship with a higher power now.
Right.
My faith is at the it's probably the most important part of my life. So all gifts of sobriety.
Yeah. And your husband.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You found your soulmate, you found the person of your life when you were sober, and you couldn't see or find this individual with the alcoholism in front of you.
No, I never even had a real boyfriend. I met my husband when I was 40. That's not that old. Well, I did a lot of friends with benefits kind of stuff. I did a lot of flinging, truth be told. I threw myself at men, hoping that it would stick. But if they wanted to keep me in any way, I ran for the hills because I had no idea how to be close to someone. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And that's why I drank, so I could keep a layer between me and the people.
Yeah. It was a shield.
Totally.
You could put that glass of Chardonnay between you and them.
Yes.
So what are some of the biggest misunderstandings people have about sobriety?
Well, I thought that Alcoholics Anonymous, by the way, I got sober through AA. I didn't go to rehab, and that was just me. Other people have other paths.
Yeah, it's choice.
So I thought that AA was a bunch of people sitting in a dark, smoky, even after smoking became
illegal.
I just pictured, smoky basement, everyone's holding onto their chairs and jonesing for their next drink. And I found exactly the opposite. I found generous, loving, open, high-quality people of all persuasions. We are everywhere, by the way. Doctors, lawyers, we're your stay-at-home moms, we're your high-powered executives. We are everywhere. I meet sober people everywhere. That's a myth. It's not a dark basement. There's a myth that people struggle every day. Some maybe do, and in the beginning, I sure did.
Right.
But I don't struggle. Somebody said just over the weekend, it's nice that you and your husband have each other to support each other. I'm like, there's nothing to support, because like I'm pretty clear I never want to drink again, and I'm also aware that when you say that, be careful, because I'm only one drink away from being off and running.
Right.
You know, alcoholics are down and out losers. Not true. As I said, we're everywhere, and we're all kinds of different people. Oh, there's a big myth that without alcohol you'll never have fun again, and that is so not true.
Yeah.
The fun is just different, and you're more present for it.
Yeah.
There's a myth that sober people can't be around alcohol. That may be true for some. For me, it's not. I was at a party over Super Bowl weekend with just copious alcohol, and it just made me more clear how much I don't want.
How much you disliked it.
And then the last myth, I think, is that people go to meetings because, I mean, for years, people say, why do people go to meetings after 20 years? For some, perhaps it's because they have to, but for most, it's because they want to. They want to be a beacon of hope for others, and also, they're really good. I have a friend who went to some meetings with my husband, and he's like, I may go just on my. He doesn't have a problem with alcohol. I may go just on my own because it's. I think every human should go through Alcoholics Anonymous. So, yeah, it's something you want to do, basically.
What makes it so hard to get sober and then maintain your sobriety? It's like we can all go on those diets where we can lose, whatever number of pounds, 5 pounds, 10 pounds in a month or whatever it is, but then we gain it back. And so why is it so hard for people to find sobriety? And then why is it so hard for people to maintain it?
I can speak about my experience. So I already shared why it was hard to get sober was all about fear and shame. For me, well, why is it hard for people to stay sober? For me, it was critical to have a relationship with a higher power. There's something about faith and realizing that there's a lot of things beyond my understanding. It just helps me. It just helps me. You have to admit you have a problem. And a lot of people don't. They want to fight the world. They want to stay out of acceptance. They want to blame. This is a huge thing I see in alcoholics. They want to blame others for their circumstances. If you're doing that, you will probably drink again.
Yeah, it's not my fault.
If you begin to take responsibility for yourself and know that you're creating all of it, you have a much better chance of remaining sober.
Yeah. Another thing we were talking about at the break is there seems to be a difference or a gap that if you see a drunk woman out of control, seems to have a different perception than if you see a man who might have too much to drink. It's sort of, it seems to me, this is my opinion, so audience or Laura, you could disagree, that we're more tolerant of men who drink too much than we are of women. And I wonder if you ever thought about that, or why is that?
I think about that a lot. I think that's one reason women stay in the closet, because no one wants to be a drunk woman. And when I was in the heat of in my end days of drinking, the ugly time, I was so afraid that I was going to be an elderly drunk. To me, it was so. Oh my God, I don't want to be a drunk old woman. And the way I was going, I'd probably be a homeless drunk old woman. This you see me. I'm a rational, intelligent,
she's
successful
woman.
She's an
attractive woman that's got a beautiful sweater and scarf on, which she had to show me how to tie.
And that's where I was headed. I was headed to, they say jail or death, and there's no good end to this. But no, I think women hide it because it is kind of dirty. And it seems more acceptable for men. I don't know.
Yeah. So if a woman's listening right now, what do you want them to know about that maybe thinks they might have a problem? What do you want them to know? And you said something I find really interesting. You said that you knew that drinking was wrong and you felt like it was bad or dirty or that it was a personal hell in a way.
Yes.
But yet you still drank.
Yes. That's because I was talking about that switch that turns.
Yeah. That click.
That's when my rational mind lost its power. And I heard this thing about powerlessness, right? I remember buying the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, like in the 90s, right?
Right.
And I read that first step and I'm like, yeah, whatever, powerless over alcohol. I learned what that really meant. And it was so strange to watch. It was like I was watching myself.
Like you were watching a movie.
Totally. And I'm like, this is you. I would look in the mirror. I've talked to other alcoholics who have the same experience. Look in the mirror and going, Laura, this is you. Nice. Are you happy with this?
Yeah.
And then yet continue
to drink.
Because, and this is, I don't know if it's a disease or not. I know it's a whatever. It's out there that it is. I don't know. I'm not willing to say that. I know that something weird happened in the end where it became larger. I lost my rational mind and the demon was just really present. I had to get my drink on. And I would even say this out loud. Drinking became my first job. My integrity went out. I know. I had to do it and I hated it. It was so strange. And I pray that anyone listening never has to go there. And you don't have to go there. I want you to know that. You don't have to go there.
So if a woman is listening that thinks they might be in this situation, what do you want them to know? What should they do?
Well, first of all, know that you are not alone. If you are feeling fear or shame or self-loathing, just know that many have gone there before you. Many have gone there before you. And many are there right now. And so when I went to AA and in my first meeting, the hardest thing I ever did, bar none, in my life, the hardest thing was to walk into that first meeting. And I heard things. I'm like, oh, my goodness.
Oh, that's me.
That was me. And so I wasn't alone. Immediately I wasn't alone. And there's a weird thing about AA meetings and alcoholics. I mean, we've seen it all, we've heard it all, so we kind of laugh at inappropriate things because it's okay. It's all okay. There's such a high level of acceptance there. That's what shocked me most. So you're not alone, number one. Number two, there's help out there. There's help. There's rehab. There's AA. I encourage you, if you know someone who's sober, pull him or her aside and have a conversation, because we love those conversations. I'll speak for myself, but I know many, many others that just love to have those conversations to help, because I didn't know who to talk to. So talk to another alcoholic or talk to an alcoholic, and just know that by walking in an AA meeting, you are not committing to never drinking again. Remember I talked about experiential learning. You're just going to listen. Nothing will be required of you. There's no requirement for membership. Just go and listen. If someone asks if you want to share, just say I pass. It's perfectly acceptable. Nothing is required. And in fact, I didn't utter a word for the first year in AA. I just didn't. So many reasons I didn't. I just listened, and guess what? It got in. And I really wanted out. Now, I drank for 2 months after I went to my first meeting because I was experimenting too.
Yeah.
But just know you're not committing to anything. Go see if you like what you hear, and experiment, build new habits. One other thing. Sorry. You don't have to tell the world. I'm telling the world. You don't have to tell anyone you don't want to tell. Anonymity is there for a reason. Mm-hmm. This can be your secret. And what I've learned after I got sober, there's a whole lot of people that don't drink. They don't drink because they don't like the taste. What? They don't drink. They leave a half a glass of drunk wine on the table. They don't drink for health reasons. They don't drink for religion. Whatever. There's a whole bunch of people that don't drink. So you just be another one of those. And if somebody says, would you like a glass of wine? No, thanks. You don't have to make a reason. And I think a lot of people feel like they'll have to tell, they'll have to be outed, and it's just not true.
You don't have to fill in the gap. You can just say no thanks. You have to say no thanks because I'm on a diet. No thanks because I'm on medication. My doctor says I shouldn't drink on the medication. You don't have to make up an excuse.
You don't have to.
No is okay.
Yes, but if you want to make an excuse, make one.
Yeah.
Some people that's very helpful.
Yeah.
And then lastly, your life can be better than you've ever dreamed. I feel like my life started when I got sober, no lie. Now, I'm really grateful that I had all those years that I did the way I did, because it made me who I am today, and I would not be doing what I'm doing today in my work. I would not be the person I am today had I not been a drunk. So I am super grateful.
You'd probably still be in the restaurant business and going to all these parties and events and
making an ass of myself.
So how does all this relate to your coaching business? Because, you talk about coaching people from the inside out. You talk about helping people discover their true self or discover their why. How does this relate to your coaching practice?
Well, it was strange that night at that NABO event when I told you that I wanted to talk about this, because it's not really part of my business. Obviously, it comes up in my business, but something told me that's what I want to talk about because it's not out there much. How it relates to my business, we talked about self-leadership earlier, and those 3 steps: the self-awareness, the learning new things, and the experimentation. And so this, what we talked about, alcoholism, fits exactly with that. Knowing, being able to admit you have a problem.
Right.
Self-awareness. Learning new things. Like, I couldn't do it alone. And a lot of other people can't either. So you have to learn new things that allow you to be sober. And then experimentation. If you're not sure you want to live the rest of your life without alcohol, hey, try it. Once I got a week of sobriety under my belt, I knew what that was like, right?
You woke up feeling better.
Oh.
You weren't foggy-brained.
Oh, my goodness. And this happens to a lot of people, they start feeling good, so they think, oh, I can drink, right? And this time I'll be able to moderate. Not true. And every time I drank during those 2 months, it got worse. It snowballed more.
Yeah.
And finally, the day I stopped was I had a golf date with somebody, a guy a good friend of mine, loved him. We're in Scottsdale, beautiful golf course, beautiful day, and I felt like crap. And I said, because I knew what it was like to feel good, right?
Yeah.
And that day I said, I will never feel like this again.
Yeah.
And so December 29th, 2003 is my sobriety date. And I am so grateful. So my practice is about self-leadership.
Okay.
Getting sober requires self-leadership, and self-leadership is all about choices.
Right.
And once I got help to be able to make the choice, remember I lost my power.
Right.
I felt like I lost my power. I choose in every day, just like I choose in my relationship with my husband. I choose in my work. I'm not a slave. I'm not chained to anything. I have to make choices, and to me, self-leadership is about making choices that serve you. And being sober serves me unbelievably. Right. So this is how it relates to my practice. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, and one of the things you said I think is really important for people in the audience to think about. It's about what is that one thing. If people remember the old movie City Slickers, it was a bunch of 3 guys that were in their midlife crisis. They decide they're going to recover their manhood, so they go off to this dude ranch and they come across Jack Palance, this old crusty cowboy. And the entire movie, through all their misadventures, he keeps talking about the one thing. Right. What's the one thing they need to know? And then he dies before the one thing, and then they had to come out with City Slickers 2 to figure out the one thing was in his hat. So focusing on that, what is one step you can take? What is one thing you can do to become a self-leader, to become self-aware, to use your emotional intelligence? So clients come to you, what's typically the way clients come to you? They come to you because they're looking for help in their career, their life, combination of both.
Well, the cool thing, I do a lot of executive work. I work for an executive consulting firm also, as well as my own business. So clients come to me. I had a twist of fate. A high-powered executive got assigned to me. She was moved from another coach. And in our very first session, somehow, and she was very closed about this, somehow it came out that she was very concerned about her drinking because I opened it up to her. I mentioned that I was sober, and that made her, for some reason, able to talk about it. And our work was not about that primarily, but through our work together, she ended up getting sober, and I'm so happy about that. But
that's a great success story.
Oh my goodness, and so divinely delivered.
She was with a different coach, but she came to you because there maybe the coach
they weren't a great
the
fit.
coach-client relationship wasn't a great fit. So if you're out there and you're ever looking for a coach, you've got to find the right coach. When I was looking for a coach in Seattle, when I went through my fall, which is when I ended up being exhausted and all these kind of things, I needed to find a coach that fit my style. And I didn't want one that I could talk to only over Skype. I wanted somebody I could meet with personally. I could see her eyes. I could touch, we could think about things. And so I went through, interviewed probably 10 to 12 people before I found the right coach for me and where I was in my business, because I was pretty clear what I wanted to do, but I needed that coach to ask the tough questions or the thought-provoking questions that ask me what was my why.
Yep. There are a myriad of coaches out there, and I encourage anyone that comes to my door, I say, take your time and find the right fit, because it's a big decision, and it's often a big investment.
Yeah.
So people come to me for all kinds of things. They have creative endeavor. Maybe they want to write a book, and they're feeling like, who am I to write a book, or I don't know how to do it, whatever. So, it's about being yourself.
Yeah.
You have to be yourself to write a book. You have to be yourself to show your art. So I for some reason, creatives are attracted to me. People that want to improve their career, absolutely. Relationships is a huge thing. I counsel or I coach a couple. I haven't done a lot of couples work, but the work we're doing is so amazing, and we do that in person. I do most of my work over the phone, but I do have an office in Tustin, so I do see people there. Really wonderful relationship work with either individuals or couples also. So just with self-leadership as the umbrella,
right,
almost anything can fit under there, because I help you create what you say you want.
And self-leadership comes from the inside out.
Amen.
You can read the books, you can take a class, but it has to come from, and not your head, and maybe not even just your heart. I think some of it has to come from your gut.
I had a woman come to me with a stack of books, and she sat on the couch and she said, Laura, she wanted to improve her health. She said, Laura, I know what to do. She's pointing to the books, but I'm not doing it. And I said, so-and-so, if we work together, you have to leave those books at home, because it's not about the books. Something has to shift inside, and then the outside will be quite simple. And it's a gut thing. You have to really get your why. You have to get your why.
Yeah.
And then clear out the gunk that's in the way.
Yeah.
And I'm an expert gunk clearer. I really am.
That should be on your
My
card.
claim to fame.
I clear your junk. Or your gunk.
Not your junk.
Your gunk. So what advice do you have for women out there? From your coaching career? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
You said what's the one thing?
The one thing.
Yeah. For me, the one thing is to know that between stimulus and response, there is a space. There's a famous quote from Viktor Frankl. I won't share it right now.
Right.
But between what happens and how you react, there is a space. It's not automatic. There's a space. And in that space, you get to choose how you react. And so after something happens and you feel an emotional response coming on, just pause.
Yep.
Take a breath, pause, and you get to choose your response. Just know that. You own that. And that little formula is at the core of everything I do.
Well, and so I'm a freak about looking up what words mean, right? So I have to look up what words mean. And so I looked up the word react versus being proactive. When you look up the word react in the dictionary, it means one of the definitions is to act without thinking. Therefore, you have engaged your mouth without your brain.
Totally.
And how often does that turn out well? And it's interesting you mentioned Viktor Frankl, because I talk in my book about Viktor Frankl, about the power of vision. And he did extensive research. He was a doctor, a Viennese doctor, very high-powered when Nazi Germany came around, and he ended up being being in the concentration camps. And what he talked about in his research is the one thing that kept him alive was being able to learn something from being in the concentration camp and being able to share that in the world. Meaning. And what he found was the thing that kept these people going was they had something meaningful to do in their life that wasn't finished. And those that survived, that was the common core. They had a vision. They had the one thing they wanted to do. They had their why.
There was meaning to their suffering.
There was meaning to what there was meaning to your suffering that helped you be who you are today, and helped you write your book and be at this incredible and having an opportunity to share this with our audience. This is absolutely fantastic. And so there's one thing in the book I do want to just one of the pages, I don't remember what page it's on, but it says, when you shine your light, you magically become more beautiful.
It's true. As I said, I became comfortable in my skin, and now when I'm out in the world, I try to just be a loving soul, and I find that people that are comfortable in their skin twinkle. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Pattie? They have a little twinkle in their eye,
they
and a real
shine.
presence about them, and they can be. I'm a little odd looking. I'm not classically beautiful.
You're very pretty. You look.
But I'm not classically beautiful. But I think people, no matter what they look like, can be more beautiful when they just breathe into who they are. Because there's only one of us. There's only one of you.
There's only one of us. So how do people get in touch with you?
I think the best way is through my website. I'm at lauradewey.com. And I would be happy to connect with anyone or just have an exchange with anyone who has any questions about what we talked about today. And maybe they're not comfortable talking to anyone else. Or if you want to just call me and talk about my work, that would be awesome too. Yeah.
There's a reason, that shining light. There's a reason we were attracted to one another in some of these meetings when we sat and chatted and talked. There's a reason there's that sort of connection there. And again, Laura's book is called Shine Your Light. Illuminate Your Love, 12 Steps to Attracting Relationships of Your Dreams. And because of all the things she's been through and all the lessons she's learned, she found the love of her life. And the last thing in the book says, your light is uniquely beautiful, let it shine. And I absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. So thanks so much for being here. This was truly, truly a pleasure.
Thanks so much for having me.
I
had a blast.
So much fun. And just a few last-minute things. So my name is Pattie Grimm. I wrote the book Quiet Women Never Change History. Be strong, stand up, stand out, with the subtitle Let's Go Kick Some Glass. You can find my book and Laura's book on Amazon, but also please reach out to me. My email is pattiegrimm@live.com, and that's PATTIEGRIMM@liv.com. Reach out to me if you'd like to be a guest on the show, if you have a topic you'd like to hear about, and or if you want to book myself or even Laura. If you reach out to me, I'll connect you with Laura if you want to connect us for a speech or an event or speaking to one of your women's groups. I speak at a lot of women's groups, and I don't think anybody's talking about this topic. So I'm thinking maybe that's something that I know you've been doing, but something like how do you talk about this at a chamber event or at a women's professional network event? Because I think there are a lot of women that are going through this, that are in denial, and that are sitting back thinking they're alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Far too many.
Far too many. Well, thanks so much for being here. Fabulous show. Great topic. And thanks, Laura.
Thank you, Pattie.
Have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Women Kicking Glass, the only radio show on OC Talk Radio dedicated to empowering women to be the best they can be. Listen each week or download the podcast at pattie.grimm.podbean.com. To reach out to Pattie to schedule a speech webinar or to learn more about her leadership and team training, contact Pattie at pattiegrimm@live.com. For more information about her company and her books, have a kicking day.